Hi, welcome to the CalmWaves podcast. I'm Dallas Cowan. I'm here with Dr. Doug Cowan. Today, we'll just jump right into it. We're going to talk about installing brain centers into facilities. We're going to talk about what that looks like, a little bit about the technology we use, but really we're going to talk about the advantages of what a brain center using brain technologies brings to football programs, to nonprofit programs, whatever that looks like. If you're trying to help people, this is a great tool for you. So we're going to talk about that today. So go ahead, Dad, talk a little bit about brain centers and your experience with them, and just how that works.
There'd be a wide variety of what you're referring to as brain centers. Some would be a small solo private practice for a psychotherapist, and we wouldn't really call that a center, but I'll come back and explore that. And then it could be as large as a major university's football program or athletic department, and anywhere in between. So what we have is a variety of tools to accomplish targeted tasks. So let's say it's a psychotherapist in private practice, a psychologist in private practice. What he wants is for his clients to make the gains that they want to make to achieve their treatment goals that they want to achieve as quickly as possible, as thoroughly as possible. And so we have certain tools for that, whether it's a direct neural feedback system that we'll explore, what they are, but a direct neural feedback system or a cranial electrical stimulation device or whatever. There would be a personal device that he'd give to his client, to loan to his client. And it could be just a few items that the psychologist would use, but it would help greatly in his practice. That's what I experienced in my private practice, is using just a few tools with my clients. They did great. They achieved their treatment goals and loved the process. And then bigger scale, like we are putting together proposals right now for a couple of different large scale things. One is a major city in the Midwest is looking at just exactly what do we need to be able to provide state-of-the-art help to 200 of our inner city youth every year at a very cost-effective way, and it doesn't necessarily involve 1 hour of psychotherapy a week. That, how can we actually change the trajectory of their lives living in an environment that's very dangerous and where many of the kids have acquired post-traumatic stress disorder just from trying to walk home from school. So this is a major city that has a budget for a project like that, and we're exploring that with the city. And it would involve lots of different technologies for lots of people. Some would be personal technologies they would take home, and some would be things that would be operated by trained clinical staff.
Well, one of the things that I see, just to kind of talk about with these brain centers, is that as I have experience of talking with, as you said, the cities or nonprofits or football teams, one thing that brain centers help to is scalability. We look at mental health, we look at what is happening in the current environment where mental health is being pushed, it's being, which is great, which is, people need to find mental health treatments, but a lot of times it's only found through talk therapy. And not saying that's bad or that's not good, but when you try to scale talk therapy, it's very, very difficult. If you're trying to take care of 200 kids or 100 football players, you gotta the ratios need to be pretty high compared to a therapist or a mental performance coach to the players. We were doing some research on what is current, when we're looking at the football program, what does the current state look like? And there was, I looked at the last 10 football national champions, which is like 5 teams. It's like Alabama and Ohio, like, and Clemson. Like it's not many people. So it's like 5 teams. I was trying to look at the last 10 years. And the ratio from mental performance, just practitioners, just listed on their athletic program, to athletes, the ratio was 1 to every 200 athletes. So they may have another center, they may have other people that they go to, but when it comes to trying to help with anxiety, depression, the mental PTSD, CTE, traumatic, brain injuries, all those types of things. That's why we see that this is filling in the gap. A brain center helps fill in the gap to make it more scalable, because you're relying on the technology rather than someone's expertise. So I want you to let's go there, because you've done both. You've been on both sides. You've been talk therapy side of things as a marriage and family counselor, and you've done the brain therapy. So why is it that you see, or where do you see this kind of fit in?
Well, I think these technologies are very powerful on their own, whether there's a therapist involved. For some of them, they're personal devices. And so there's no therapist required to operate them, to push the button that says on. That a player, a client, can simply take it home, and with 15 minutes of training can be off and running with it and start their practice with it. Some of these tools, you learn how to do things like learn how to create certain brain states and maintain them, even under different conditions of cognitive load. You learn how to maintain those brain states. Others, you learn how to get more oxygenated blood to flow into the front part of the brain. And as you learn to do that, the brain actually makes adjustments, creates more vasculature, and allows more oxygenated blood into the front part of the brain. Other devices are classic vagus nerve stimulators, and also help with release of serotonin or dopamine in the brain. They can work very well in the limbic system, so they're FDA approved for the treatment of depression or anxiety or insomnia, and have great applications for post-traumatic stress disorder. And those devices, as powerful as they are and as well studied as they are, don't require a therapist to be in the room to use them. I mean, they could be in a sports bag. We have a number of athletes who have those devices in their suitcase when they travel. And like I say, 15, 30 minutes of training, and somebody can be off and running with all 3 of those kinds of devices. So you can leverage yourself pretty well as a therapist or sports trainer or team doctor, sports psychologist. You can leverage yourself pretty well with technologies like those, where they've taken what once were really, really complicated technologies and just made them really simple, gamified the feedback, and they're great. Then there are other technologies that require a trained operator to just be in the room and monitor the client, the subject, the patient, while they're doing it, and they're just more sophisticated and in some ways more powerful technologies. So you can't really leverage it too much. You can train a technician, like a psychologist with those tools could train a technician to work under their supervision. That leverages their time. But somebody's got to be in the room with those very, very powerful tools like direct neural feedback, low energy neural feedback systems.
Absolutely. And I think, so I'm going to ask you a question. So this has kind of been our project we've been working for a little while, is working with this football team. And, part of the process has been to try to scale these technologies, called 4 technologies. 3 are take-home technologies. One needs to be used with an operator. What is the process we're doing? How are we presenting how to scale into them? I know the plan, but I want to hear from you. Like, what is, you're trying to work with 100 football players, adding a system in there. How are we doing it? How are we approaching this and teaching them of what the install would look like?
Yeah, I think when it's running at full speed, a program like that, I mean, you phase into it. You don't start with 100 players on day one. So you would phase into the process over a period of maybe 3 months. But it starts with a facility that would have the direct neural feedback in it and trained staff, maybe from the trainers department or the sports performance department at a university, maybe some graduate students in neurology or psychology or sports psychology. A lot of people who could easily be trained to operate and supervise the treatment. And so those would be in a fixed location, part of the trainers department, part of the football program, part of the athletic department facilities somewhere. And the players would come to that. And you'd have maybe one of those systems for every 10 athletes that are going to use it on a regular basis. And then the CES units, you would just have one for each athlete. They would take them home. And they would log in. There it is. They'd log in. They'd use it maybe, certainly in the evening to help them go to sleep, but then maybe during the day when there's something that's more stressful that's happening, like they're studying for a test. And they want to be focused and peaceful as they go in to take the test. So if all they had in life was just the sport, they would be wearing it when they're rolling out before they get suited up, and they'd wear it after the game to go to sleep. Personal device. 15 minutes of training. 15 seconds of training. That's probably faster, more accurate. The Mindy would be another one of those devices that they would take home. The blood flow trainer. Feedback is on devices such as a portable phone or an iPad, personal phone. And that's about 15 minutes of training, and then people would use that maybe every other day, starting off at 2 minutes, then 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And it is one of those devices where the more you use it, the better the outcome. So 100 training sessions is better than 50. 50 is better than 20. 20 is better than 5. 5 is better than nothing. So you want to use it as much as you can. Maybe every other day is a great pace for that. And it's just something that you do. You could do it riding your exercise bike. You could do it walking to class. You could do it anytime you have the time to do anything anytime you're in a place where you can think about anything you want to think about, you could do that. Because it could just be 5 minutes here or 5 minutes there. Although the more you use it, the more it trains you for sustained attention. So like this particular device, NASA uses it to train astronauts for spacewalks. So it is something that's used for, we want you to get focused, we want you to pay attention, and we need you to pay attention for like 35 minutes. This is not the environment for you to like, oh look, a star. You better stay focused in what you're doing. So NASA does use these devices for longer sustained attention training. The other one, the other personal device that is the Focus Calm, which is a very sophisticated device. It's very cool, very sophisticated. It takes a little bit more training, a little bit more supervision. It can be used by the athlete who's just learning how to do it in his room, and it could be done 3 times a week in the room, probably 15, 20 minutes sessions. And then as the person gets through the first phase, which is just figuring out how to get their brain in a particular brain state, a focused but calm brain state, where it's focused but not burning a bunch of glucose. It's focused and it's measurable. The device is very sophisticated that way. Now, once they're good at getting into that state, then we start to add cognitive load to that. So whether it's the Stroop color word test or memory tests or other things like that are gamified, that the subject now needs to play those games, do those tasks well, and maintain that same level of calm focus while they're doing it. Also, same heart rate variability, same heart rate and same respiration and all that while they're doing it. So once they've learned that place, they maintain that place no matter what the load is that is applied to them. And that gets bigger and bigger and bigger, more and more and more as time goes on. So as the cognitive load becomes more extreme, it becomes harder, then that needs to move more into the room with the therapist so that it can be monitored. It can be, on big screens and shown to the subject, hey, right away, this is what you did. You got 95% right on this task, but you were losing it with your focus, and you're losing it with your stress. And this doesn't have to be just with therapists. It can be anybody who's trained with peak performance training. So not just therapists. That's right. No, it doesn't have to be just a therapist. A sports psychologist. It could be an intern. It could be somebody who knows who's competent. Mm-hmm. Right? Let's use that word. A competent person. And then the training continues that until a person can handle a really difficult task without burning a lot of glucose, focused and calm during a really difficult task. And that could be, we see that with, let's say, training of Formula One race car drivers in Italy, that the tasks get harder and harder and harder and harder, and those who can learn how to maintain that focus and calm state, then they get to get inside a race car. And those who can't learn how to maintain that focus and calm state, nobody's going to give them a car to go 200 miles an hour in for 3 hours, 4 hours. It's not going to happen. So they learn how to do it first in the simulator, and then or on the whatever device it is that they're going to use, whatever task they're giving them, they learn how to do it first there before they get into $1 million race car. So that kind of training at that level is best done in more of a laboratory kind of setting, a clinic, brain center setting, along with the direct neurofeedback, which would be in that setting as well. Nobody's taking that home with them.
Absolutely, that's the device that needs to have somebody operate it. Yeah. So when we've been talking with, that's been a huge subject of, especially talking with a football team about, okay, how does this work? How does this install work? Because they only have limited time. I mean, you're trying to add something to their routine. It's not taking it away. So it's not, you're going, hey, this is a different kind of leg press. This is a new feature for them. And one thing that we've been really in how we choose a lot of our technologies is based off of, is it easy to use? And is it impactful? Because there's a lot of brain technologies out there today that you can use, and they don't overlap either. That's the other thing, is it's not going, okay, we're going to use two technologies that are kind of similar, but you need to do it. And I think what's great about even when we've been pitching to different people is it doesn't take that much time away from what they're doing. So really the only technology, which is the most powerful one, was the direct neurofeedback that we keep talking about. And everyone's like, okay, what is that? Type of a thing. But it's the most powerful one. And the So that's kind of the brain center is being able to, and there's not a lot, it's not a big footprint either. I mean, these things can all fit into a backpack. So those are the kind of the hurdles that we get over when we're talking to a team about, this type of process is, all right, it's not taking that much time away. They can do it on the road. They can do it. The direct neurofeedback does take time, but it's the most powerful thing to enhance somebody or fix somebody. So it's really exciting to be able to do something like that. But the other three technologies, they can all pretty much do it on their own with about 30 minutes of training. And that's how we've really built this brain center, or this brain center concept, is around those technologies and that type of program. And so that's been super exciting. And even applying it to, as you said, going back to like the city that we're talking with, it's kind of taking that same approach, where it may not be football, but it could be with, a nonprofit that's helping with kids in the inner city, or foster care, or with trauma. I mean, all of these technologies are all beneficial to these types of people groups, because they all have brains and they all have things that have happened to them. From a football standpoint, you're looking at repetitive head impacts and, anxiety and depression and all those things that come with playing a sport at a high level. You're looking at foster care, you're looking at, trauma. I think that one of the coolest things about with the direct neurofeedback is when we've talked to these centers about using this for and from a mental health standpoint, is the kids don't have to talk in order to get better. A lot of kids that are aged out or in the foster care system they call it, therapied out. They don't want to talk to somebody else, another person, about, their trauma of what they went through, but they still have anxiety, depression, PTSD, and all those different things. So that's what's really great about using a brain center or brain technologies. They don't have to talk about it if they don't want to, because the brain and the computer just talk back and forth to each other.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I made a big shift away from really super cool EMDR. I'm trained, I'm certified, I'm an EMDR guy, watch my finger. But I moved away from that and working with veterans, combat veterans especially, with their PTSD, because they told me their story once, and that was like enough. Their stories were so horrible. It's like, I'll tell you what, how about if we move to a treatment that's every bit as effective and doesn't require you to keep reliving this thing until it goes away in the long-term memory? How about if we just wire you up? And they were all good with that. I was good with that. And it's a very effective treatment to optimize the brain and to help heal it from post-traumatic stress disorder. So people had a much better ability to deal with the past and move into the future with direct neurofeedback. And I mean it was bad. It was the worst. These are the worst stories you are going to hear. And then, and combat is a little bit different kind of PTSD than, other horrible things that can happen to people. So I was glad for that it was a way to move people from here to there, where they wanted to be, but much more gently. So my clients were getting better, not being desensitized to what happened, not reliving it while their eyes are moving, not anything like that. It was just, hey, what music do you want to listen to on my stereo system? And you can close your eyes or leave your eyes open and watch the deer out my window walking by, and I'm going to improve the way your brain's working. So it became a brain spa that was also very healing to their brains. It's very effective. It's very cool. So I liked it for that. So then that's something that a person in private practice would really want to consider, is this technology, the direct neurofeedback. It works. It's very effective for anxiety, all anxiety disorders, even social anxiety disorder, panic attacks. Very effective for that. It's effective with depression. Very, very helpful with ADHD. And those are all kind of bread and butter things for a person in clinical practice. It's very helpful for all of those. Anxiety is remarkably good. But we're also finding it to be beneficial with things that I wouldn't expect it to be helpful with stroke, symptoms of strokes, especially cognitive symptoms of stroke, Parkinson's or other kinds of tremors. It's like, who would have guessed that? But yeah, it does. It's very helpful with things like that, at reducing the symptoms. So we're all trying to figure out, okay, how can something be so helpful with so many different things? And in the end, it's all we can say is it's just optimizing and bringing healing to the brain. So it is effective with traumatic brain injury, concussion, repetitive head impacts. I mean, I'm saying it because there's research behind it, as well as people telling their stories.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's really interesting that way.
I love one of my favorite stories that you tell is about one of your clients who had anxiety, and debilitating anxiety, I think how you explained it. And she sat down in the chair, you direct neurofeedback, you get wired up, you put some gel on, there's a computer screen, and hit a button, and she went, oh, it's gone. And then you asked, what was gone? He said, well, the anxiety's gone. He goes, how does that make you feel? Classic therapist question. And you said, and she said, she goes, well, I've never lived without this, so I don't know how I feel about it. And I remember you telling me that story, and that was the story that got me going. All right, what is this? What is this technology? What is this thing where someone can just wire it up, not talk about it, and then get miraculously healed? And the process is as we've, the great thing about direct neurofeedback, I know we keep talking about direct neurofeedback, even though we're talking about, brain centers, but it is kind of the most exciting of these technologies is, you feel it in the first time, you feel it in the second time, you'll know it's going to work, down the road. And we'll do a whole podcast on just direct neurofeedback. But the reason why, from an install standpoint and from a operation standpoint, what we love about the direct neurofeedback is you can have just an operator doing it, and they don't have to talk to the client. They don't have to be there. It doesn't have to be this. There's an art to it. We call it art and science. There's an art of them talking to the client, asking them questions about how they're feeling in that moment, but it's not directed at their past. It's not trying to fix them, of trying to, all right, let me get deeper into it. And then the science part about it is the computer and your brain talking back and forth to each other. And that doesn't change. That's just solid. So the real training, the art part of it is very, very small when it comes to just understanding how to operate the machine, how to wire somebody up, and then ask questions. So that's what I love.
We're looking for yeah, I mean, it's really great. We're looking for a shift in the way the brain and the central nervous system are operating, so that the parasympathetic nervous system kicks in at levels it hasn't been playing in a long time. We turn up the volume in the parasympathetic nervous system, turn down the volume in the fight or flight system. And then we see changes. There are physical changes that take place in that, whether it's relaxation or visual acuity or more focused thinking, clarity of thought. People will tell me they feel lighter. I'm like, I don't know what you mean. I don't know. I just feel lighter. Okay. Yeah, it's amazing. That one client you're talking about, yeah, she'd had anxiety, she said, every day since she was 4 years old. And her husband was in the military, stationed at the base near where we used to live. And was one of those guys who would pack a duffel bag and say, I love you, I'll be back, kiss his kids goodbye, and be gone for 3 months. Couldn't say where he'd been, couldn't say where he was going, he was just gone. So there's a lot of stress involved in that for this mom with 2 young kids. But that was his job, was just to disappear for 3 months. So, yeah, she had had anxiety. It was since her mom had been diagnosed with cancer when she was 4. I think that's what the trigger was. And so I saw her, she was 30-something years old, and anxiety was it was like her closest friend. She had it every single day. So, yeah, she responded really fast, like freakishly fast. It surprised me. I'd never had anybody else respond in 4 seconds. And it turned off her anxiety. And, yeah, that was the conversation of, well, do you like it? I don't know. I've never not had it. You'll get used to it. But, it wasn't cured right then. It took about 15 sessions. But then it was over. It was over. So not too many things that are in that mental health category that's that severe in 3 months is over without pharmaceuticals, without whatever. So this was one of those things that was really a remarkable case and one that we were very grateful. I was very grateful to be a part of it. Other anxiety cases, they typically take about 15 sessions, 20 sessions. They're not as dramatic as that one, but yeah, I mean, people feel a reduction in anxiety relatively quickly. So it's really cool.
And that's what we've seen with people that have been trained on this is we kind of just let them know, hey, get trained on it, do it, and then find these people that are having these types of issues and report back to us. And when we've been able to do brain centers or just the direct neurofeedback, we've just seen great results. And so from people that we've trained to and how to do this. And so I think from a scale standpoint, it just fits in really well with an office or a facility that already has people there. I mean, we think of a couple buckets of when it comes to kind of doing installs is, do you have the audience? Do you have people? Do you have operators? And do you have funding? I know, and if you get those 3 things, we can be able to do installs, wherever we're able to do it. And so it's been super exciting to see these other situations that kind of come up, or these different scenarios, whether it's a football team or a city or nonprofit or a therapist office. It's going, yeah, we can do all of those. Because the technology is the thing that helps people, and it's just seeing what their goals are. If you're at a football team, you're trying to perform and win and peak performance side of things. Yep, this is the program that it looks like. So it's more about building the program that fits around the clientele than really changing out the technology, because the technology is, everyone's got a brain. So whether you're, trying to be, you're the CEO of a multi-million-dollar corporation and you have anxiety, we can help fix that. Or it's somebody who has debilitating anxiety and they can't function. We can help fix that too. So it's just really going, okay, what are the goals? How do we package it together? And then how many people are you serving? So that's really the equation on our side of trying to do these installs.
Yeah, I think right now, I mean, just so the listener has a general idea of, from the practitioner's side, who can benefit from this, we have a number of people in private practice who are using it in their private practice. It's part of their, just like I did, it's people want to schedule appointments to come in and be a part of the technology, get wired up, use the technology. And easy 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 people who would come for treatment say, I know this is going to help. and they make the second appointment, the third appointment, the 15th appointment. They just know, they come. Besides private practice, we have some counseling centers where we have one across town here that's got 15 different therapists. They just have one unit right now. They have 4 people who are trained to operate the technology. So, and one is a mental health technician or something. So that all he does is neurofeedback. So they have one person dedicated to neurofeedback, 3 therapists who are trained and competent to run it, and then everybody else refers people to them. So last I heard, they just started. They've got 25 people that they've worked with, and they're 25 for 25 in customer satisfaction, including a child with autism, people with tremors, and a couple of people post-stroke. But your typical anxiety, depression, ADHD, they're working with. So that's going on right now. There's a school in the Pacific Northwest. It's like a residential treatment facility for teenagers. I'll try to be as vague as I can. There are 50 teenage residents at this facility, and they use it. Their clients come in, and it's part of the treatment program for their teenagers. We have a guy, this is fascinating to me. We have this gentleman who is a wellness provider. He has a big practice with clients. He's a nurse, he's an RN, but he does a lot of just wellness coaching with people. And he's integrated this into his practice, and he started doing horses. And he has done over 20 horses right now. He's got videos to show the before, during, and after treatment with horses. He just texted me a little bit ago. He's doing a race horse today, a barrel racing horse, for a rodeo on Saturday. He's documenting everything. So he's with the animal today, and then I think he's going to do a session tomorrow, and then Saturday. This is 3 days from now is the rodeo. So he's going to document that.
And the guy we're talking with, I talked to him too, and he called me and he goes, "I'm getting a physical response from the horse." Meaning, so with horses, if a horse is all angsty, it's looking around, it's doing all these different things, but when it gets relaxed, head goes down, it licks its lips. It means it's safe. So he would do the direct neurofeedback, hit the button, and they said within just a couple stems, is what we call it, a couple stems, the horse is like relaxed and rides completely different. So, and that's his world. This world is barrel racing and competing horses at a high level. And so he was like, this is phenomenal for this industry.
Yeah, so we got asked today from some scientists that we're working with back in the Midwest, because the amount of energy involved in it is so very small that one of the scientists he had to ask, so is this just placebo? How do I know it's not placebo? And so we're going to get some brain imaging for him, real-time brain imaging, to show him that it's not placebo, but there's still nothing better than, here are these amped up racehorses, hit a button, 30 seconds later, they're not amped up, they're focused, they're dialed in. There's no placebo with a horse.
Yeah.
So, so that's important, I think.
It's funny with the Calm box here, when we give it to somebody, I get that a lot when people will be like, I don't know if it's placebo, but I'm focusing better and I slept better and I'm less anxious. And I'm like, all right, like that's where the direction you want to go in, right? They're like, yeah. Are you going to keep using it? Yeah. So I think it's a very interesting topic because you can't see it. You can't see it getting better. You can't see the energy going into your brain or running through it or anything like that. You're just subjectively being able to go, this is how I'm feeling. And so people just always wonder, like, well, is this going to help me at all? Pills make you feel a certain way, relief or whatever it is. But this is just, it's natural and it's helpful. So, I mean, we're big fans of it. Kind of wrapping up this episode talking about, because we could talk about direct neurofeedback. We'll do that, dive in super deep into just direct neurofeedback or just cranial electrostimulation or nutritional neurofeedback or blood flow training. But from a if somebody's listening to this, they've gotten this far, someone's listening to this going, all right, I believe in the technology, I believe in what this looks like. What do you have to tell them from a what would you tell them and to help them to go, yep, I like install this into my facility? What would you tell them? Like what's kind of our ending process? I know we've talked a little bit about it, but
I suppose that would depend upon what kind of facility they had. If it was a school, we would talk about academic performance and how each of these technologies can enhance a student's academic performance, and show them the studies on that. And I mean, like 30 years worth of studies. It's not, none of these technologies are new. They may be new adaptations of old technologies, but none of them are new. And they're all heavily researched, whether it's traditional kinds of neurofeedback or HEG blood flow neurofeedback or the CES unit or direct neurofeedback. None of them are new. So there's research on all of them, certainly in academic performance. There's research on all of them for military applications, decision making, which translates directly into athletic performance. And the Olympic teams using similar technologies. Formula medicine for Formula One drivers uses similar technologies. I mean, the most elite athletes are already doing it. So if you're not doing it, hey, you're probably not one of the most elite athletes. Red Bull Sports Training Facility uses neurofeedback among other technologies. So, it's wide. There are wide applications to it. I think business-wise, that's going to be a little bit trickier because there's always this cost-benefit result. But I know that Google and Microsoft both have large brain health and performance centers for their workers, especially their computer programmers. That when people make their living off brain power, how well their brain is working, for people to invest time and money into making their brain work better, it just makes sense. So a professional athlete needs to spend time in the weight room getting his body stronger. His body will work better if he gets his central nervous system and brain to work better. Every athlete will sort of figure that out. It's not just mental performance coaching, thinking good thoughts or whatever, confidence. Those are all great. But I mean making the hardware, the brain and the central nervous system work better is a good investment of time for an athlete, just like being in the weight room, making muscles stronger and more flexible and quicker. So a business would have to look at this and say, all right, I've got salespeople who make their living with their brain. I've got computer programmers make their living with their brain. I've got executives make their living with their brain and decisions and creativity and so on. Do I want to invest in these people in such a way that their brains will work better? And frankly, most companies will say no. But some companies say yes, and they've done really well. I mean, Google's done well. Apple has done well. Microsoft has done well because they're investing in the brain performance of their programmers, engineers, and executives. So a lot of companies will do this. I think there'll be a growing number of companies exploring this as something that they want their brain-powered executives and salespeople to do.
Yeah, I would say also it's being able to say, hey, here are some technologies that can benefit, them while they don't have to be in the room, meaning that they can go home with them, like the portable technologies and being, that's what we're seeing in the marketplace is, we don't make any of these products, we're not manufacturing any of these. We're going, here are the best ones out there that can be used in this way. So our big thing is just trying to build the best program around these proven technologies. So we're able to say, hey, here's this light footprint when it comes to time and energy to be able to build it for your program. So if it's that's something that we know we can get through when talking to whoever. The other conversations about cost and do you want to do this? Those are other kind of types of conversations. But when it comes to actually doing a program, it is actually a very light footprint in your facility and with your people. But it helps them get better in a tremendous way.
Yeah, I think one of our technologies just published their studies with medical personnel during COVID, and the use of their technology on a regular basis, every other day, reduced job-related burnout 25%.
Which one was that?
That's the Focus Calm.
Focus Calm. Okay.
Yeah, just the one technology. So that's why we believe in a suite of technologies, but just the one technology reduced job-related burnout, both in executives and then in medical personnel during COVID, 25%. So, that's if you have an executive that you're paying him $400,000 a year and he's getting burned out and wants to quit, well, it may be worth an investment to keep him around. If you have a staff of nurses that a whole bunch of them want to quit, well, it may be worth investing in their brain performance, their central nervous system, to help them to deal with the stresses of day-to-day work. So it's really, these things are genius and can and will change the whole way that mental health treatment is done in scalability and in efficient results. Yeah, they're very cool.
Absolutely, and that's what we're excited about is being able to introduce these types of technologies and talk about them, and bring them to the world in a very structured and scalable way. So, well, let's wrap that up there. I know we can talk a lot about different subjects, but when it comes to kind of installing kind of the okay, if I'm interested in this, how does this work? What does this look like? That's what we really wanted to talk about today. But yeah, thank you for joining us here on the CalmWaves podcast. And if you've made it all the way here, thank you. And we'll be talking more about going in depth of how the technologies work and latest trends and things like that. So thank you for joining us. And for now, signing off.
All right. Bye-bye.